Hi, so in today's video, I'll be telling you about my encounters with German people working in various institutions. So first, it will be about my the very first job in Berlin in a hotel, about a consulate in Netherlands, where I had to deal with German people, and also the meeting with German police. So if that's something for you, if you're curious about further events from my book Piglet, then stay tuned and off we go. Uh, okay, so my very first job was the job of a housekeeper in a hotel Premium, 3B Premium in Berlin. That's a chain of hotels in Germany. And when I was being employed, I met a very nice woman called Frau Zawadzka. And she was actually a Russian woman. And that was an interesting meeting because when I was having my interview, she told me that, she also started from cleaning toilets. And, it felt like she wanted to tell me, that one day you just start from this place, but it doesn't mean that you're, tied with that job till the end of the life. So it was really nice, as if, giving hope and showing you the way. And when she said that, I started to think immediately about, to learn about the system. This is what I thought when, having this conversation with her. And she was like, yeah, to learn about the system. And she was pretty happy. It seemed like, at least, But when I worked in that hotel, I was just, I felt cool because you worked on your own, you had your corridor with your rooms, and it was pretty amazing because I was fast and I could feel reliable and I could feel, that I was keeping the pace and I was good. Because, Stephanie at the beginning, my supervisor who was checking each and every room after me would tell me that, you have forgotten the chocolate, you need to get back. So once I had to, run with the chocolate to save the time. And I got back and then I realized, no, I don't want to, run with the chocolate again because that's really worse. It's better to do the double check and just look around. And we talked with Stephanie just one time. We talked about the magical dust that, she's like, Kinga, dust. There was one floor. If I worked on that floor, then I would remove dust a few times and it would get back. So I told Stephanie, and she's looking at me because I thought so. She wouldn't believe that. So I'm like, okay, come with me. I'll show you what happens. And I started to remove dust like 3 times in a row. And I showed her, and it gets back. So that was the dust, but that was typical for one floor, and on that floor we had carpets, and on the majority of other floors they were easier to handle because there were no carpets. So yeah. There was the magical dust. um, and Stephanie was really like, Stephanie was really understanding for me. Like, she never yelled at me, and I remember her waiting for me to finish drinking. So at the beginning, I didn't drink at work anything, but with time, my brother-in-law was just coming around, and when I was going to sleep, um, he was still sitting and drinking beer on his own instead of leaving, and that was pretty much it. So I believe when you go to sleep, you enter altered states of consciousness, and you are just more prone to hypnosis. Because at the beginning, I didn't drink drinks from minibar, and later on, it happened, unfortunately. So I think Stephanie should have just, scolded me once she knew, and she just didn't say it. Didn't say anything. Yeah. Um, and Coming back to the subject of Frau Zawadzka, Miss Zawadzka, years later, I got back to Germany and I wanted to work in the hotel yet again. And when I went to the interview, I asked for Frau Zawadzka because I thought it would be the same lady, and I was told that she wasn't working there anymore. But it's not just about what I was told, but it's about the way I was told it, and the expression on the woman's face was like she was just basically happily telling me that that Frau Zawadzka wasn't working, and she basically knew who that woman was. And when the very first time I worked in Berlin in Dryby, I saw the same woman. We just had, for the first time, we had the meeting of the entire staff, and we were all cleaning vacuum cleaners in the same place. And that lady was with us. She was conducting the entire procedure, and she just approached me like like you know I don't know even how to call it, but um, just kind of sensed some more attention on me, and she approached me and she started to clean my vacuum cleaner, and she started to show me that I clean my vacuum cleaner in a wrong way, when in fact my entire experience of the very first work over there was very, very positive. So I could keep the pace. I was even asked once to help somebody else because I finished earlier. So that lady was the lady I met years later who told me kind of happily that Frau Zawadzka wasn't working there anymore. So, that lady is also very similar to the woman who employed me in Kokomo. Not specifically her, but I had a Dutch-looking lady who was talking to me and implying, that my appearance, the way I looked, and so on. So she would left the office. She went to bring another friend to look at me, or somebody maybe above her position, and they just looked at me, so that they could approve that my appearance is okay. So the second lady who entered was very similar to the one who employed me in Dryby company, which looks like, the chain of strip clubs in Poland, might possibly connected with the chain of hotels in Berlin. Um, and when I finished working earlier and I was asked for, going and cleaning somebody else's room. And there were 2 rooms to do, and I just entered and I wanted to help. And I asked, what could I do? Because I don't know what does she do first, and so on, and what has she already cleaned and what she didn't. And she didn't tell me anything. She just moved her arms, or she just kept looking. And I had an impression the woman wasn't in a hurry at all, because if people are waiting for you to finish job, then you probably should be in a hurry, right? She tried to quickly tell somebody, okay, do this because I'm doing that. She didn't say anything, so I told her, okay, so I'm doing the bathroom. And in the second room, I'm doing the bathroom. And then once I got back to my supervisor who asked me for this help, then I just stood at her and I looked, and I thought I had this in my mind, this idea that that woman wasn't in a hurry. And, looking at it all from the wider perspective and the fuller picture of knowing how Oculus is to work, I think maybe it happened more often that she was intentionally slower than anybody else, and she would intentionally keep her supervisor at work because of her slowness. And her supervisor was a lady from Ukraine. I had a lady from Germany, very nice girl, Stephanie. Right, so my experience of working there, thanks to those people, was great, actually. And then we go with German police, so I went to visit my family in Berlin together with my Jewish friend, Ivana. And we were listening to music too loud, so somebody called for the police. Police knocked on the door, and Ivana told me before we even opened the door, she was like, "Okay, so let's say we don't speak any language. Let's better do that." So once we opened the door, I just stood there feeling like a moron, like an idiot, and we pretended that we didn't speak any language, but I was in my mind thinking about it. But it's visible. There's got to be a way that they have to tell that they see that I actually can speak languages. So, and as we stood there, me, Ivana, and German police, I had this memory that showed up in my mind, memory or just reference to German films, like like they're knocking on the door and screaming "Polizei, open the door." Yeah. So a question appeared in my mind if I wasn't afraid of German police, and I was thinking that no, that the history regards older generations, so it wasn't those two people who stood in front of me who were responsible for Holocaust, right? Um, so they ask us for our IDs, and then I'm in my mind thinking about my two surnames, and yeah, and we were emphasizing, that we were alone and there were no boys, so boys were my topic, weren't they? So actually, these two policemen were very nice people, and they told us, okay, so if there isn't a party at your place, then we're just going away, and just don't turn on the music too loud again. Um, but it was very unusual in a sense that you had a gypsy woman, a Jewish woman, and two German policemen um, having that meeting where where it seems like the history was played out between the German people and the Jewish people, but that's not entirely the thing because, well, the gypsy were highly involved too, and occultists were highly involved too. So it was a unique meeting, I think, with the perspective of time. Yeah. And then when I went to leave many years later, I went to live in Holland and I wanted to stay in Holland for good. Then I was going to my sister Christmas. I was going to Berlin, and there I, lay on the bus and just covered with my coat, and I was just, it was late in the night, and he was just the policeman was pretty much disturbing me, but he was, he was either he seemed to be curious, and I think he was channeling me, and he asked me for my passport and for my surname. I mean, the surname was like on my mind, and I was thinking about my two surnames. So a question appeared in my mind, like, is it legal? Yes, I was like, yes, it's legal, but I don't want to search for the, the papers. And, I started to think about the vaccine. And when I was taking the vaccine in Holland, um, actually, it was just enormous queue. The very first vaccine I had in Volendam, there was no queue, not even one person waiting in the queue. So I was the first one, and I got it. And with the second one, I had to go to uh, Zandam. It was hard to find the place, and once I found it, I found just enormous queue of people. And once I got to the, to the nurses who did it, they were actually Arabic ladies. And so I asked them, I told them that my hand was swollen after the last injection, and maybe I could get the injection on my leg. That was my stupid idea. And they're like, we don't know, we need to ask. And I was thinking, okay, the queue was already long, so I would just take that vaccine when I should take it. Um, but the thing is, I didn't want to take any vaccines, and you know, that was the entire time after, soon after coronavirus. It wasn't no longer so um, threatening and so on. But Hans, with whom I was sharing a room, actually told me, that he wanted me to get the injection, wanted me to get the vaccine, and he emphasized that he was older, and he actually was older. But even if I did take the vaccine, he didn't let me stay longer in his room, so I had to find a place where I could leave. Um, I think that was unfair, and yeah, okay. And I think the policeman possibly was checking just my topic, so as I was thinking about Hans and morality of sleeping on somebody else's carpet um, when actually that person explicitly has remarks about we can be a girlfriend and a boyfriend if you like. Thank you, but okay. And then I also went to German consulate, and I went to German consulate because I had to make my German passport. So here I have the conversation. Like, a lady working, or a German lady, asked me, how did you get German citizenship? And I go like this, I don't know. And she asks, do you speak German? And I'm like, rather not, but just a bit. And she goes again, how did you get a German citizenship? So I go, well, I really don't know. And my sister used to know more, but I really don't. So she asks a very simple question, a logical question. Is your mom or dad German? And I'm like, well, no, no, they aren't. And in my head, I go over them and I think, well, dad is brown and mom is white, but but they both come from Polish villages, and I used to be raised as a Polish woman only. And I would have to tell you that I probably don't know what it means to be Polish. I don't even know that, but um, so um, you know, she probably told me then that she had to, I would have to check it, verify it with the Polish consulate, and find out like how is it really, where does that citizen come from, and it was something about the border, and the border that changed, and after the Second World War, so um, the part of the land that was um, I don't know the details here, but the part of the land that was Polish became German, or or after the war, that the part that was under the German control became Polish. Something about the border. Um, so as she told me that I should check with the consulate, then I was in my mind with having the memory of doing the passport in Krakow, in receiving the news you're not in the document. So I'll tell you about that too. And I go over that memory and I think, okay, this can be a little bit complicated, but she's right. But like how could I and And therefore she said, it's fine. So she said she would check it on her own. And then I was like, oh my, I was so lucky. Um, yeah. And I started to think also about her, like, this is how a German girl looks like. And then I have a thought occurring in my mind, like, you don't know how a German woman looks like? And I'm like, no. And then I think about Berlin and the district Neukölln, which I have visited, and I think about the fact that there are so many, Arabic people, Turkish people, other nationalities that I don't know who is German in Neukölln. Really, like, you don't even get to see too many German people probably over there. Um, yeah, so these were the encounters with German people, but where most of them were very, very positive. And then there was Polish consulate and that memory, so I came around and I wanted to make my German passport, and I received the news that I was not in the document. And I show him the passport that I had, and he stares at me. He says, "But you're not in the document." And there's the bodyguard, and he stares at me too. And I'm standing with that passport and thinking, Jesus, it was a little bit stressful, and I felt suspected. And then and he shows me this document, this and this person is mentioned, and I'm like, yeah, they are my siblings. This is my fault. They are my siblings. So he goes and disappears behind the door, and he was missing for a while, and he got back, and he told me that, oh yeah, he found me on the second page of the document. So I started to think about him, that he was, incompetent, and this and that and that, and I was angry. And then a thought occurred in my mind, like, aren't you going to say anything? Yeah. And then I started to think, I started to, as if justify the answer to that question, like, I wasn't going to say anything because, it could have been just one day that he had like that, or maybe he was working like that all the time, but I didn't know about it, so it wasn't really that much of a big deal, right? All right. And then I still needed some further information, like, I was about to go to Holland, and I wanted to know if he would send me, the passport, or if somebody could pick up the passport on my behalf. And he's like, well, you know what? There are consulates in Holland too. So I was like, oh yeah, you're right. You made my day. So I think generally he was probably, yeah, a good guy to just checking something in my Akashic records, possibly. So, but anyway, Piglet is on sale, and today you can have it for $4, and tomorrow it's gonna be 5. So the price is growing every day. So the sooner you make up your mind, the better it is, the better deal you have. And then Amelia is growing too. So if you want to learn more about, identities of lesbians, gays, pedophiles, and transvestites, how these are being shaped by occultism, then click the link in the description of the video, and you'll find the info in the description of the video on my website and on my Instagram, Facebook accounts. If you like this video, like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching.